So in the brand new update, Tycoon just added the RAH-66 Comanche, and I'm not gonna lie to you guys, but this helicopter is really unique in multiple ways, and I have to say, it's probably one of the better helis in the game. But anyway, before we start the damage test, I'd like to quickly walk you guys through this vehicle's base stats. When you max it out, it's gonna be having a health of 845 and a speed of 292, which is by far the second fastest heli in the game, slightly behind the RAH-66. And by the way, before we start this video, make sure to join my Discord server. I am currently giving away the Chronoplane. The link is in the description. So the first and probably the most noticeable thing about the RAH-66, which we can actually notice, is that this thing has an extremely high agility and just overall good turning speed. Just look at this. Look how fast this heli can overall turn and just go around the environment. So let's go ahead and actually move into this thing's missile and how good their damage actually is, because this thing will actually be able to get the F-35B pretty low after exactly 4 missiles. One missile should average around 20% of damage, which is definitely decent, but it's nothing too much. However, if we move into the damage that it does against the Mi-24 Super Hind, it will easily be able to kill it within 4 missiles, and this obviously means that most of our helis will probably die within even 3, so these air missiles are definitely really good. Now, if we move into this thing's anti-ground missiles, this is where things do get kinda weird, since the damage on them per hit is definitely pretty good. It's going to be able to average around 20% per hit against the Striker Shored and the TO-55, but then once again, you only have 2 of these missiles, so the max amount of damage that you're really able to do with them is roughly around 40% of the meta vehicles, which isn't all too great. It's just okay bonus damage. However, where this thing's strength is definitely the most noticeable is going to be with its rockets, because most of the time these rockets are going to be more than enough to basically destroy every single ground vehicle in the game, unless you have some insane levels of health. The TO-55 is barely able to actually survive these rockets, and keep in mind you also get the cannon, which we're actually going to be looking at right now. So I think that's probably going to be one of the best parts about this helicopter. The cannon has extremely good DPS and can actually shoot for quite a long time, and it's basically able to shred helicopters and planes quite easily. So if you do have good aim with this, or you know how to get really close to your enemy, which you should be, since this is by far the second fastest heli in the game, then this is going to be really easy to use. Now if we take a look at the damage that it does against ground vehicles, it's also going to be pretty damn good. Within a full burst, it's going to be able to destroy the Striker Shored. However, it's going to be taking it at least 2 ammunition clips to be able to destroy the TO-55. So that is not that good, but keep in mind that tanks do have different damage multipliers, which is important to consider. However, some important things which you also need to remember about this vehicle is that, of course, its stealth is actually going to be lasting a pretty long time. I believe it's around 30 seconds. However, the reload speed is also going to be pretty long, which means that you're going to be vulnerable for quite a while. However, if you know how to play with your stealth correctly, then this should definitely not be as much of a problem. Now with this helicopter does have a unique feature, and that's the fact that it can actually lock on from 2,500 studs. So you're basically able to engage any enemy from a very long distance in terms of air combat, and the same results can also be seen against ground vehicles. So you'll basically be able to lock onto the enemy from extremely far away, no matter what missile you're using. However, the one issue which I noticed is, unfortunately, the Comanche does not have a radar in the game, even though it does have one in real life, and it does by far have better technology than something like a Apache Longbow. So it really doesn't make sense to me why they didn't give this thing radar. I really do think that you should give it to the Comanche developers. But anyway, for the time being, that's basically all I have for you guys today. I think this is an extraordinarily powerful helicopter, and I definitely recommend you guys to be using it, since it does have a lot of very strong points.